Hey everybody, Sean from Media Assault here, and it's finally time to start my Schlock Cinema series that I've been promising to do this month for quite some time. I actually started talking about it last month and just haven't gotten around to doing an episode yet. So the time is finally here, and I'm going to kick it off with a review of Octaman, which is from 1971. This is a 78-minute long piece of schlock that I totally recommend if you love bad movies. As you can see on the cover there, that is the creature Octaman, and that expression on his face is the expression he carries for the entire film. He always looks like that, and that is the costume, minus a couple of tentacles. I'll actually put a picture up on the screen for you right now so you can actually see what the costume looks like in the film. There you go. Isn't that beautiful? You may note that this is the first costume created by Rick Baker. He did create this with the help of another gentleman, but this is actually his first screen credit. And he eventually won an Oscar for his makeup work on American Werewolf in London. So, all great things have to start somewhere, and this is where Rick Baker started. So it's at least noteworthy for that. The movie actually is noteworthy for a couple of other things too. It was written and directed by a man named Harry Essex, and Harry Essex actually has a co-writing credit on Creature from the Black Lagoon and The Sons of Katie Elder, Dragnet, a whole bunch of TV work. It Came from Outer Space, a whole bunch of different stuff. So he's not a slouch necessarily when it comes to writing. This is one of 4 movies that he directed, the other one being included on this particular DVD called The Cremators, which looks equally bad. It followed the next year in 1972. So if you hear, Octaman was directed and written by the guy that wrote or co-wrote Creature from the Black Lagoon, you might think, oh wow, this is going to be pretty cool. And then when you hear the cast, you might even think it would be pretty cool. You've got Pier Angeli, who was a starlet in the 1950s. She was actually married to Vic Damone for a while. She was associated with James Dean, was predicted to be a very hot up-and-coming star in the 50s and 60s. And by the time this movie was made, she was kind of down on her luck, and she actually passed away a few months after this movie was filmed from a drug overdose, which some people have said is a suicide and some people have said is not. Judging by the type of role that or type of film this is, the fact that it was a suicide or wasn't a suicide may lean one way or the other, but I won't get into that because I know she was a very well-loved lady, and she was actually very, very beautiful in her prime. Also stars Kerwin Mathews, who is known for The Seventh Voyage of Sinbad and many other action films in the 50s and 60s. He plays Rick, a research scientist examining, or at least trying to study, Octaman and its offspring. And Jeff Morrow, who is known for This Island Earth, among other things, also is featured in a small role as a professor at a college. So based on the cast, name recognition, you've got Rick Baker doing makeup, doing the costume. He didn't actually do the makeup on this film. Rick Baker with the costume, Pier Angeli, Kerwin Mathews, Jeff Morrow, Harry Essex. Wow, this is going to be a great film. He's got all these classic actors, classic director, or classic writer, now directing. And once you hear the budget, $250,000, you're going to get what you pay for, and that's exactly what happens here. First off, the problems with this movie become very apparent very quickly because the Octaman costume is on screen all the time, and it looks as bad as you've seen all the time. It never changes. It is never shied away from being featured in close-up, extreme close-up. I don't think you ever can see the zipper or anything on the costume, but it is so obviously a man in a rubber costume. It's finding the zipper would just be, icing on the cake. It's so terrible. And the direction by Harry Essex does not do anything to try to conceal the costume or make it creepy or do anything to build suspense. This movie's totally beyond that. And I have to believe they knew they were making a piece of schlock while they were making this movie. There were no two ways about it, unless you were on some super heavy drugs, that you would ever think that this creature looked realistic at any point in this film. His mouth never moves. His eyes rarely move, only in extreme close-up. He has tentacles. He's got the two arms of the actor inside that move and can grasp things, but he's got tentacles that hang down off of his back that float when he's in the water because there's obviously no weight to them. They're just full of air. He's got another set of tentacles that run along the side of the actor's legs. So I believe there are 8 arms on this Octaman, but only 2 of them do anything in terms of arms, and of course 2 do allow him to walk because they're the actor's legs. So yeah, he does have 8 appendages. Only 4 of them do anything. He also produces some offspring that are very obviously rubber octopus toys that are pulled by strings along the ground to make them look like they move, and they have this weird baby cry thing that going on. It's awful. It's terrible. There is some odd connection that is attempted, like a psychic connection between Susan, the character that Pier Angeli plays, and the Octaman. Every time he looks at her, every time he looks at anything, they play this mystical, sort of dreamy music. I can't really describe it. But every time he looks at something, you see that. And of course, you see it. It looks like it's shot through the bottom of some sort of bottle or something. You get all these images on the screen, sort of like a bug eye effect for the point of view shots. But every time he looks at this Susan character, there seems to be this sort of implied connection between the two, and Susan can actually tell Octaman what to do, and he listens sometimes. And there is a lot of similarities between this movie and Creature from the Black Lagoon. There's a research team that goes into the wilderness to track down a creature. Well, in the process, there's a tree that's pulled down that blocks their exit so they can't escape. The creature becomes kind of attracted to the lone woman in the group. Same thing happens in Creature from the Black Lagoon. Harry Essex wrote both of them, so hey, you can't fault it because the guy can't sue himself, I guess. There's also a weird noise that happens every single time Octaman is on screen, and it sounds like, and even though this came first, it sounds like the Space Invaders thumping noise. You know how if you saw Space Invaders arcade cabinet, there was that doom, 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 doom. Well, slow it down by about 20 times, and you've got the Octaman theme. Every time he's on screen, there's this thumping noise, like an electronic thumping. It's very strange. The acting in this film is awful by everybody involved. There's not one redeeming performance in this. And according to the box, that the film was actually filmed as silent, and the voices and sound effects and everything were dubbed in later. There is also an incredible amount of stock footage in this film. When it rains, it cuts to stock footage. When they need a shot of wilderness, they're supposedly in this lake, swampy area in Mexico somewhere, and anytime they need a shot of wildlife, they cut to stock footage. It's hilarious. You could play a drinking game of spot the stock footage. You'd be wasted by the end of the game or the end of the movie, and it's only 78 minutes long. So in an hour and 18 minutes, you won't be able to stand up if you drank or took a shot every time there's stock footage. I highly recommend this if you are into schlocky movies at all. This was definitely something that would have been very popular at the drive-in. I believe, I couldn't find out if it was made for the drive-in circuit or if it was made for TV. As a kid, when I was about 5 or 6 years old, I did see this on TV, and that was the first time I ever saw it. And it probably would have been around 1974, 1975, somewhere in there. And this was made in 1971. It was released overseas theatrically at least in a couple of markets, notably Mexico in 71, 72. But yeah, I don't know that it was ever released theatrically in the United States. In any case, the 40th anniversary edition is now available on DVD for your viewing pleasure. I highly recommend it in terms of schlock value. And if the camera starts shaking, it's because my cat is now precariously perched near the tripod. So seek it out, check it out. If you don't want to spend any money for it and you're a member of Amazon Prime, you can see it for free on Amazon Prime. So if I'm going to give it a rating, again, keeping in mind that I'm rating these as schlock pieces, this is a definite 8 out of 10. Highly recommended as a piece of schlock cinema. If you want to take it seriously, don't bother watching it because it wouldn't even register on any other type of rating system. So that's my review of Octaman. Stay tuned for my next review of schlocky film. It'll be 1976's Ape, which was user requested or viewer requested. And I hope you stick around for that. That ought to be really entertaining because it's, from my memory, it's almost equally as bad. And I saw that one in the theater. So take it easy. And as always, feel free to rate, comment, and subscribe if you haven't done so already.